Welcome back. In my third book, Easy, Sexy, Raw, I wrote about the Doomsday Project. The Doomsday Project, or the Vault, as it is also known, is an air-conditioned bunker where the Norwegians have stored heritage seeds. Billions of them. Why did they do this? Because they're afraid of what's going to happen to life as we know it due to the introduction of genetically modified food, also known as GMOs. Well, that's their solution to this growing problem. But what can we do about it?
From a medical journal called Cell Research, this is news about the dangers of genetically modified foods. And this is new information. This shows the mechanism by which genetically modified foods, or GM foods, or GE foods, genetically engineered, may alter your organ function.
GMO stands for genetically modified organism. Basically what it is food made in a laboratory. Until the last 20 or 30 years, this is food that has never existed before in humanity. So it's made in a laboratory, and more often than not, they're inserting viruses or bacteria into these plants.
I believe it's our future, after all. I mean, if you're going to do something to our food, we should definitely know about it. And we're the ones who might have to live with these consequences.
GMOs were designed to sell more chemicals.
What happens when you consume plants that have been altered, artificially concocted in a laboratory by profit-driven scientists working for the most evil corporation in the world?
Should we not be trying these things to help those that are dying, or are you against that too?
Should we be messing with Mother Nature?
GMOs, one of the most controversial issues in the world today. GMOs are the cornerstone of life as we know it. Nearly 60% of all food in the world contains some sort of genetically modified ingredient. Although GMOs play such a huge part in our daily lives today, we've been genetically modifying organisms for thousands of years. It's just now that recently we've started introducing modern technology to help further advance the field. See, it's these recent advancements that make GMOs such a controversial subject. Genetically modifying organisms in its simplest state is easy to understand. But with the use of biotechnology and all the modern advancements there are today, it's extremely hard to understand. And this is where the controversies arise. See, but before we can understand all the controversies surrounding GMOs, we first have to understand what a GMO is. A GMO is simply a genetically modified organism. And that can take many forms. To give us a few examples of what GMOs are and how they're used in the world today, we turn to Dr. Bill Bernsen and Pete Erickson, who gives examples of GMOs in modern agriculture today.
Well, my name is Bill Bernsen, and I'm a faculty member in the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of New Hampshire. For most people, they're talking about things that are done in a laboratory to try to alter the DNA of an individual, and I think the most frightening part for many people is the idea of taking some genes from one species, introducing them into another. I think that's what a lot of people consider GMOs to be, rather than the kind of thing I described that we've been doing in the cattle industry, for example, with selective matings and so on. That we're modifying people with those techniques, but I think we don't really do that in the laboratory. We do that out in the field, so to speak. And so I think that's what most people would consider to be genetically modifying an organism.
Okay, Pete Erickson, professor of dairy science, dairy management, extension dairy specialist here at UNH in the biological sciences department. A few things we have to be concerned about in agriculture is we should all be interested in it, as we all have to eat. And I believe it's the USDA or the World Health Organization has indicated that by the year 2050 there will be 9 billion people on the planet. Right now there's about 7.2, 7.3 billion. So we have to feed these people. When we think about GMOs, we typically think about, a lot of it is about crops and how can we increase yield. And if you go back to the original geneticist of Gregor Mendel, he was essentially developing crops through crossbreeding, and it was originally with peas. Again, I'm not a geneticist, but seeing improvements in yields. And what we're doing with the GMO is taking a gene from one species or crop and putting it into another one so that we can increase yield of these crops and basically help feed the world. I recall watching an episode on PBS many years ago dealing with starvation in Africa, and one of the researchers there developed a genetically modified sweet potato, and sweet potato was a major crop for consumption in that country in Africa, and through that she basically tripled the size of the sweet potato. So when you're struggling, wondering where your next meal comes from, and you can modify a crop to do that, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a positive attribute of this. So you can look at this from a lot of beneficial aspects. I think GMOs get a bad rap, primarily, personally. I think we need to study them, we need to vet them, and I think I believe our scientists in that area will do a good job from that end.
In a world with a drastically changing climate and an ever-growing population, we need new agricultural advancements like GMOs to be able to survive. Although there are many issues surrounding GMOs and their applications, we need to think about the bigger picture. This world isn't getting any bigger, and the amount of viable farmland isn't getting any bigger as well. The truth is, GMOs have allowed us to support the world's population, and we are only going to need more of them to enjoy the same quality of life that we enjoy today. So before you go out and dismiss GMOs altogether, remember this. Without them, life as we know it would not be the same. And the future of human life on this earth depends on them to survive.